episode of Successful Conversations. The person I'm going to be speaking to has made a big splash on this earth and had an effect on many people's lives. This person has traveled the world, been to many different countries, and has also worked for companies such as Microsoft, Sony, and as well as Barclays. Please everyone welcome the influential, the enlightened, but also gentle Earl Lynch, aka Papa Bear. Nice to meet you, my man.
Good to see you, Mari. Good to see you.
Good to see you. So, Earl, can you please tell us, what do you actually do?
Now I run a training and development consulting company by the name of the Kairos Experience.
Kairos Experience. Can you explain Kairos to us?
Well, the word Kairos is one of the Greeks' words for time. They have two words for time. One is chronos, which is measured by the clock. The other is Kairos, which is measured by moments of destiny. A moment where something special happens. A moment that God deems appropriate. And I'll tell you a lot more about that later.
Okay, brilliant. So, what does the Kairos Experience do? What do you do within the business?
Okay, so I was going to use the infographic to tell you all about the Kairos Experience. Want me to do that now?
Oh, yes. Please explain us through the Kairos Experience.
Alright, so here we go. So, the philosophy of the Kairos Experience, there are two words the Greeks have for time. Chronos, measured by the clock. This is measured in seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years. So everybody kind of understands this. And then the second philosophy is all around Kairos, which is measured by the quality of interaction between the two people. Kairos, the word actually means moment of destiny. A moment God deems appropriate. A moment where something special happens. And what we're trying to do is to get more people, particularly leaders, to think more in terms of Kairos time rather than Chronos time. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
A manager might say, I need to do your appraisal, your personal development appraisal, and I'm going to take an hour to do it. So, Amari, get yourself ready. 60 minutes to develop an understanding of what you're going to be doing for the next 12 months. It doesn't seem sensible. If I was in leadership and I was your leader, I'd be looking to say, okay, Amari, we're going to look to develop you. And it might take 2 hours, 5 hours, 5 months, a whole year. But that's working in Kairos time.
Yeah.
It's whatever we need to discuss, we discuss it. And out of that quantity conversation, quality moments will drop out. And that's what we'll be able to work on. For me, in my early days, I had a Kairos moment where I'd finished with my band, I left the night before, went to a bus stop the following day to catch the bus to go and see my girlfriend.
Okay.
And I met a gentleman who had an 8-hour conversation with me.
8-hour conversation?
8-hour conversation, many cups of coffee and tea. At the end of that 8 hours, he gave me a job. And at the end of that conversation, when he gave me the job, I was employed in that organisation for 7.5 years. I started as an assistant to bookkeeper, and I finished as divisional manager.
Brilliant.
I also took my professional qualifications and became a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development. So that was a Kairos moment. It led to a Kairos meeting. It led to a Kairos job. And that was my launch point. So when I built this company, it was built on the understanding of Kairos. So I have two aims. The aim for our business, for individuals, is to enable us to create moments that will change lives for good. However, we also have a philosophy which is for business, so to be a change maker. So our aim for business is we want to help them make money, save money, look good and feel good. So that's what we want to do for business. So you'll see how that translates when we get into the company.
Make money, save money, look good and feel good.
Yeah. Now the company is based on this mission statement here, which is we want to challenge, motivate and empower people in organizations to achieve an improved set of results when they're at work, or improved performance at work, and a better quality of life when they come outside of work. And we do that through courses, programs, events that make learning fun. So just to extend on the values, challenge, motivate and empower, We also want to give people some great information, so it's our job to inform,
Okay.
to inspire, so that people feel really, yeah, I want to do that. I want to do that in my life, and
So-
then to drive action. So it doesn't just stay in the classroom; it's something that lives with them after the classroom event.
So just to ask them, how would you get them to drive action to take that out of the classroom?
Okay, well, we often have various tools, techniques, which enable people to say what they're going to do differently when they finish. What are they going to do on Monday morning when they get back into the office? So it might be, we might ask them to fill in a postcard with what are you going to do differently? And then we'll post that postcard back to them later on and they'll go, oh my God, I said I was going to do this, right? So it just prompts them. And we try and handhold people after the event. So we invite them to come back and join us. We want to come into their place of work. We will do coaching. We'll do many things which are outside of the original training to help them, to develop them, to keep them moving, keep them going forward. All right, so Kairos Experience has 5 main areas that we teach.
Okay.
So this is where something special happens. We do leadership training, we do teamwork, we do sales excellence, we do personal development, and we do facilitation skills, or more to the point, presentation and delivery skills. We even have an academy to help people get confident on their feet when they present. So those are the areas that we deliver in. But in terms of our services, what we do,
Yeah.
we do consulting, we do coaching, we obviously do training courses, we run conferences, and we also have counselling, which is done by my wife next door. However, in everything that we deliver, we'll make sure it beams. So what do we mean by that? We mean it's going to be business relevant, highly engaging, so you won't get death by PowerPoint from us. We're going to use amusing activities, so lots of fun. I believe that when people are having fun, they're going to learn better. And then finally, we want to make the whole experience most memorable. If you can remember a lot of what's gone on the course, then you're going to really take that into the business and do some great things with it.
And I can imagine the being part is the essential part, because when learning, a lot of people don't take it in because it can get boring. So Earl, thank you for explaining the Kairos experience to us. I just wanted to ask, who have you worked with personally in your career? Some of the companies?
Yeah, there's a lot of companies. I've got a few here.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to 2003
2003?
until 2005.
Okay.
And I've just got a list of some of them here. I used to work for a company called Oxygen Learning, and I became the Kairos experience after that. But some of the companies that are on here include Barclaycard, Fujitsu, KPMG?
KPMG, yeah.
Yeah, Sony, Virgin, Zurich Life, Deutsche Bank, Insights, the Mirror Group, where they get Mirror paper, Specsavers, TNT, the movers, distributors, Warner Brothers, British Telecom, Eon, Interact. Who else we work for? Welsh Development Agency, Cognito, Johnson Diversity or Diversey, Redken, L'Oreal, Strategic Insight. There's a lot. UBS. There's quite a few companies. There was a lovely little company that used to, consult with a number of companies, and I had quite a few of the clients. Some of them have moved on and still stay with me today.
I just wanted to ask, was you in an advert for L'Oreal by any chance?
L'Oreal's a lovely company. I mean, it's a brilliant company. They've also got some big brands under them like Garnier and also Redken. So when you work for L'Oreal or do work for L'Oreal, it's not just L'Oreal. There's a number of other branches inside there. So that's an amazing company to work for. Very forward thinking. But just like any organisation, they've got leaders. Those leaders need training. They've got staff. Some of the staff go through changes, and we have many of our programs and events that address those types of needs.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to ask, you've worked with such big companies, but I'm led to believe you came from humble beginnings. So I just wanted to get a bit personal at the moment, and just ask, where did it all start for you? Can you tell us about your upbringing and where you came from?
All right, where I came from, yeah. I'm going to break it down into five sections for you. It starts off with the learning years. First of all, I was born in Stroud, Gloucester.
Yeah.
Very small provincial town in England. If you go back there, it's like taking 20 years back in time, because it's kind of very old-fashioned in the way that things happen. It's slow compared to Wolverhampton, slow compared to Birmingham, definitely slow compared to London. But beautiful place though, wonderful place set in the Cotswolds. Moved from there very early. I'm the eldest of 5 children, and I went to St Jude's School in Wolverhampton, and then later on went to Whitmore School. Whitmore School is based in Whitmarines, and Whitmarines is a pretty tough area.
Yeah.
And I grew up in Whitmarines, great area, very character building for me. And going to Whitmore School was also special. However, there was one defining moment for me at Whitmore School, and it was when I chose my options to go into what I was going to study for GCSEs, or CSEs as they were at the time. And I was told I couldn't do chemistry, physics and biology. And my teacher, one of the teachers that I respected, I said, why can't I do chemistry, physics and biology? And he said, well, why do you want to do chemistry, physics and biology, all the sciences? Because the way the columns were, you couldn't pick those 3 subjects all together.
Okay, yeah.
And he said, why do you want to do that? I said, because I want to be a doctor. He says, you want to be a doctor? He said, nobody from this school is ever going to become a doctor. And at that time, you believed your teachers? Nobody from this school will ever become a doctor. That was his mindset. And he influenced me to think that way. Nobody, I mean, if you think of, break it down, think about it. Nobody in the past, nobody now, nobody in the future will ever become a doctor. And it really fundamentally affected me. But basically what happened was my aspiration to become a doctor, because there was a doctor on TV by the name of Dr. Kildare, and I wanted to be a black Dr. Kildare. My aspiration went down from from doctor to male nurse, and that didn't inspire me. Really didn't inspire me. I left school, I went on to college. Now you imagine, I'm now taking qualifications to become a male nurse. Male nursing does not really impress me, it doesn't motivate me. I'm beginning to mess about in college. I scraped through, but then in the summer of 1977, I had a knock on my front room window, and a guy from a band called Capital Letters, he was looking to find a keyboard player, and he heard me playing keyboard, and he put his head through our front room window, and I was there in the front room with my mum. And he said, look, we need a keyboard player, we've got a show on Saturday, would you mind helping us out? Well, 3 years later, I was still playing with Capital Letters.
But that must have been an experience for you.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was both the best and the worst time of my life.
Okay, best and worst.
Best and worst. I mean, I started to travel.
Yeah.
I was playing in front of audiences. I was writing songs. I was singing. I was traveling, and we were enjoying a great career as musicians. It got us in front of big audiences. Ska was the big music that was around then. Our champion was John Peel. We did a Meadowvale session for John Peel, and it got repeated on the radio lots of times. So lots of people would follow the band, but we were together like 6 days a week, practicing every single night. Your life is taken over and consumed by this band, and there were some conflicts of interest for me because I was a Christian. Many of the bands were beginning to turn Rastafarian. So there was a difference in conflict. The band would sing and play dub music and stuff like that, which was cool. I was very comfortable with that. But the thing that was popular at the time was ska music and reggae music and pop music. So I was kind of pushing the boundaries on what was possible. So and my mum hated it because it was everything she didn't value. My dad loved it because he could come to the gigs at the Polytechnic and jump up and down with the punks and so on. It was great, that was. But, it shaped my life. And then 3 years after I did the professional musician thing, I dropped out. of that. We had a big bust up, and I went into my work experience. Met a guy at a bus stop, I think I mentioned to you previously, who, after an 8-hour conversation, gave me a job. My first job, real job, was assistant to bookkeeper.
So you say 8-hour conversation. That's a long time to have a conversation. Could you tell us, like, in that conversation, what do you speak about? Because you said it was your Kairos moment, wasn't it?
This man, his name was Jeff Parsons.
Jeff Parsons, yeah.
And he used to be chief executive of what was then called the Crypto Association. Many people in Wolverhampton went through the Crypto Association to get work experience. And it was paid for by the Manpower Services Commission, which was a government body that would try and get people into employment. You could have 3-day jobs, 4-day jobs, or 5-day jobs, or supervisory jobs. Well, I started as assistant to bookkeeper, and my job was to learn how to do the books, and I was the assistant to a guy called Norman Playford. Unfortunately, Norman got sick, and I then had to do the books in his absence, managed to get the books through audit, and Jeff said that was well done, and he rewarded me by giving me a job in the wages department. And it continued like that for 7.5 years, getting promotions and ending up as divisional manager. However, at the same time as I was doing the work as divisional manager, I was going to college and learning how to do my BTech, then HND, business studies, then I went and did my IPD, the Institute for Personnel and Development. So I got my professional qualification by the time I left. Qualified in 1987. I then in 1988 left and went into housing. I was management services manager for Normid Housing, which meant basically doing administration, running the computer department, the IT department, and also running the administration and personnel. And I did that for a number of years, and then my chief exec came to me and said, "Earl, we're going to go through a merger, and as our head of HR, you've got to make sure that anybody who's going to leave the company leaves with dignity, and anybody who's going to stay in the company rises to the challenge of the new organisation."
So how did it feel having that task set upon you?
It was an enormous weight on me.
Yeah.
It was tough, but I got to say, at the end of the whole exercise, in around 1994, we merged, and we had 66 people working for us at Normid. Everybody got a job, or moved to a different company and got a job. We only had one individual who didn't have a job, and he went back to university that year and did his professional qualifications in accountancy. So I was delighted because everybody managed to get something. We did make some people redundant, but they were made redundant and then went and got jobs elsewhere, so that was fantastic. So they had a bit of money in their pocket, and I was helped by a gentleman called Peter Foggin, and he used to run a company called the Learning Partnership. And Peter and I worked together to put a number of interventions together so that we could transition the managers and the leaders from our business into this new business. I ended up with a job of training and development manager, and I had to run what was called the total quality management process. It's all about, quality and making sure that the services that are delivered on the behalf of the housing association I work for were exceptional, and I had to ensure that right the way through the company. And by this time we had about 600 employees. So my role was different, but it now got me into the movement of training and development. I stayed with Touchstone Touchstone Housing for altogether a period of 10 years. And at the end of 10 years, I had a conversation with the chief exec, who was a good friend of mine. His name was Bill Martin. And he was a guy who used to work for Jaguar Land Rover. And he used to call me into his office and say, "Lynch, my office, please." And he used to say, "What are we going to do with these managers?" And he'd say, "Oh, you're wasted here. You should be in commerce or industry. Think of a time when you were doing things really well. Well, you should really be in commerce or industry. You should try and get into that line of work because you're wasted here." And I went to see Peter, because I remember when I was working with Peter, I really enjoyed that kind of people development, getting people to transition through change. And I said to Peter, what would it take to work in your industry? Peter said, I'll have you now, right now. I said, Peter, I can't just leave. I mean, it's November 1997. I said, I can't just leave. He said, yes, you can. Leave your company, come and work for me. I said, no, I can't do that. I was married, I had children, I had to think it through. And I was a safety freak. Everything, I needed to know where my next paycheck was coming from, that it could cover my bills and so on. That was my mindset at the time. Anyway, I went back to the housing organisation, spoke to my director of finance, a gentleman by the name of Colin Small, and he helped to arrange a redundancy package for me so that if I went into this job and it failed, I had something to fall back on.
Okay.
And I would have enough money in the bank to be able to look after myself for a few months before I got another job. I also bought a company car as well, so that really helped. But I went to work for Peter in a company called Oxygen. Well, it was called the Learning Partnership to start off with. And I thought my career was going to be difficult to start off with, and I was going to have to struggle before I could really make it work. But instead of doing that, I actually went like this. I loved consulting. I loved being in a profession where I could help change people's lives. It excited me. You know, there's a saying that says there are two main dates that you keep in your mind. The date you were born, and the other important date is the date you understand what you were born for.
Wow.
When I started doing consulting and working with people and working with organizations like the Microsofts and seeing them transition from one place to a greater place, that's when I found out what I was born for. It also meant that some of the stuff that I brought from the band, being in front of large audiences, being able to kind of bring people on, bring them to a higher place, that featured in this job as well. And some of the things that I did in my housing profession featured in this new job of consulting. I worked with many companies. I became head of facilitation in Oxygen Learning, and Microsoft was my primary client. And then in 2009, it's like a game of snakes and ladders.
Yeah.
There was a snake right at the top of my profession that brought us all the way down the snake, right to rock bottom. Because Oxygen had a company over here and a company in the States, and they closed down the UK operation. It was devastating. So it meant that we were redundant, and we had the option to either go to the States and work for the guys over there, or set up our own companies. So which did I choose to do? I set my own company up.
You jumped off the cliff, made a parachute on the way down.
There you go, mate, there you go. And became the Kairos experience. Now the interesting thing is, I'd always had it in my mind to set up my own consulting company, to set up my own training and development company, but never had the bottle really to do it. And I would procrastinate and make excuses. But when you're faced with, you either do this or you do something completely different, this was a serious point for me. So I left Oxygen Learning as it was then, and set up the Kairos experience within a month. So I left in August. We went on holiday, my wife and I, Beth. And when we came back off holiday, I'd worked everything out whilst we were on our cruise as to what we're going to call the company, what it was going to do, what its philosophy was, all of this stuff that I've talked to you about. It's been refined since then. I largely came off that cruise knowing what kind of company I wanted. So then we had this company, and then we had to find work. And I would just search for work wherever. So any of my previous sales experience became really important here. But it worked, and
So what was it like going through that phase of trying to go through work? I would like to call that phase like inspiration through
desperation.
Inspiration through desperation, but when you're faced with a task, you've got no clients and you need an income, and you're knocking on doors, you're married, you've got kids.
Yeah. You'd have thought it was very bad. But I must also say that the company that we used to work for, Oxygen Learning, had that sister company in the States, and we were servicing a big client, which was Microsoft. So the company in the States said, look, we still want you guys, even though you're now independent, to work with the Microsoft account. And keep servicing them because we can't find a replacement to replace you guys. I mean, we were on top of our game. We both, myself and Iyari and Winnie, who was a partner of mine at that time, we both won Trainer of the Year recognition awards from Microsoft in 2009, the same year that we were made redundant, and they decided to keep partnering with us through Oxygen Learning. However, as the years went on, Oxygen wanted us to get less and less fees, but they wanted more and more work to be done with Microsoft, and we couldn't stomach that. So we managed to negotiate a situation where we could work directly with Microsoft, and now Microsoft is an integral part of both my business and the Irish business as well. We don't do anything for Oxygen now in the States, and it just gave me enough time to be able to grow my business, find new clients, partner with certain businesses like Clarity Leadership, like Eagles Flight, like Giant Worldwide. So I don't just work for myself, I work in partnership with other organisations as well.
Okay, thank you for sharing your experience with us. I just wanted to ask two last questions. To run a business, you have to be disciplined, so to speak. Do you feel as though your time with capital letters, where you have to train 6 days a week, because that's new to me, I never knew musicians would have to train so intensely. Do you feel as though that gave you discipline in later life working with capital letters? Or?
Well, you know, with the band, I mean, yeah, we practice 5 nights a week. We would play on at least 1 night a week, so that's where you get 6 nights from. But as a musician, if you do not practice for a day, you notice the difference. Your scales don't go as nicely, as fluently. If you don't practice for a week, then those who are in the band, they notice the difference. If you don't practice for a month, the audience starts to recognize the difference. It's all about discipline, it's about precision, it's about being consistent, it's about getting it right time after time after time. And you get to a point where it's like driving. When you couldn't drive, you had to think about every single move. But when you are able to drive, and you're able to drive really well, you can drive and you can sit back and you can listen to the music on the radio and you can appreciate the weather, and you don't even think about what you're doing. Well, with musicians, you need to be in the same space where you're not thinking about what you're playing, you're really thinking about how you entertain that audience. With facilitating, with training and development, with learning and development, with working and developing people, I don't want to be thinking about the models and the architecture of how we're going to get people from A to B. I don't want to be thinking about certain books which I've read. I just want to be able to, boom, give you some insight, give you some inspiration, give you some information, and more than anything, I want to use any technique which is going to drive action at the end of the day, so that you don't stay doing what you were doing previously. You actually feel, you know what, I want to do this differently. I want to try this. And then when you start to get a degree of success in that, then that's when we can start to see the magic happens. So everything that I've done in my career prior to being a managing director of a learning and development company has contributed to where we are now.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned success just previously. To end on this video, I just wanted to ask you, what does success mean to you? What is the key to success? If you could summarize the key to success in your view.
Okay, the key to my success, and I would say the key to a lot of success, is to realize that it's not you, it's not me who makes myself successful. It's beyond me. It's through my faith more than anything that I've enjoyed success. I'm a Christian, and there's one passage of scripture in Philippians chapter 4 verse 13 which says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Nothing is impossible. I can do all things. I can speak to chief execs. I can convince whole organizations that they want to change direction in their strategic plan from here to here. I can enable a bishop to move from being a bishop to a life coach. We can get people who are not confident on their feet to becoming confident on their feet. If it's within their vision, mission, values to make great changes, and they want the Kairos experience's help, we can help them to choose moments that will change their lives for good. And if it's a business, we can help them to make more money, save more money, to look better and to feel better as a consequence of coming into our organization.
Okay, thank you for that, Earl. It's really appreciated for you
No worries.
sharing your inspiration, your knowledge,
Sure.
and just, yeah, thank you very much. It's
You're
appreciated.
welcome. You're welcome.